The ultimate guide to installing a water ionizer. The most prudent step before purchasing a water ionizer is to research the various installation options available. You can save a significant amount of time and money by doing this. There are three main ways to install a water ionizer. There's countertop installation with a faucet diverter. There's countertop installation where the water ionizer is hooked directly to the plumbing. And then there's under-counter installation. And I go over all these ways, including links and everything, pictures and whatnot, in my blog post called The Ultimate Guide to Installing a Water Ionizer, and I'm putting a link to that blog post below this video. So now I'm just going to talk about a few specifics. There are different kinds of faucet diverters that are available. One kind, the lever style, usually will come with a water ionizer. But there are a couple of other styles of diverter. One that's a pull type, and it's a little smaller than the lever style. So sometimes people will want that if they're hooking to the base of a spray type faucet, or they don't want their faucet to extend as far as the other diverter. And then there's an inline kind of specialty diverter, and that one fits in between a special style pull-out spray faucet. And where the faucet meets the cable or the flexible hose, whatever you want to call that, you can disconnect that, hopefully. And if you can disconnect that, then this inline diverter would hopefully fit right into that spot. And there's a couple of sizes that it will fit to. And one is 3/8 inch and one is 1/2 inch. So you need to measure ahead of time to make sure it's going to work. Now there's another way to have countertop installation, and that's where you hook directly to the cold water line. This is my favorite way, but you do have to watch out that you're using a water ionizer that's not going to start leaking because of the constant pressure put on the plumbing inside the water ionizer. So I do talk about that in the blog post. And so what you do with that is there's a special piece called an angle stop valve, or a T. You would hook that to right where your cold water shutoff is under your sink. You just unscrew the water feed line from there and then put this piece in there in between the two. Usually it's fine to just hand tighten it. Make sure that there's no leak before you leave it, but you don't want to over tighten it, and you don't need special plumbing tools to do that. And then once you have that T installed and you've got the availability of cold water going to your hose, you need to find a way to get that hose up to your countertop if that's what you're wanting to do. And there's a couple of different ways you could do that. My favorite way is just drill a 1/4 inch hole right there at the rear corner of the sink on the counter, but close enough to the sink to where it's reachable from under your sink cabinet. And then that 1/4 inch hose can fit right tightly up right through there and go straight into your ionizer. Now the picture I have on my post is my own setup, and I have a shutoff there, and I have extra hosing because I do a lot of different testing and everything, hooking up different ionizers and stuff. So it's more convenient for me, but you don't really have to have an extra shutoff there. Then another way to get a water line up to your counter is sometimes you'll have a pre-drilled hole in your sink. And maybe a soap dish dispenser or something would normally go in there. And you can get a properly sized grommet to fit there, and maybe silicone or rubber or something that's water resistant, and then put that in there, and then just slide your hose right in there, and then over to the water ionizer. So that's a fairly simple way. And then just looking at this picture of this tiny little faucet here, this is called an acidic water faucet or a wastewater faucet. It's sometimes used for RO systems and also for water ionizers. So what happens is the water line comes up through the bottom of that faucet and then travels over to the water ionizer using the bottom hose. Then the acidic water is connected back to the faucet and comes out that little teeny faucet. So you just leave your water ionizer in the on position, and when you and it goes into like a sleep mode because there's no water supply. And to get the water supply, you pull the lever down, and then the water comes out, turns the ionizer on. The alkaline ionized water comes out the top spout as it normally would, and then the acidic water, which is very usable, comes out this little spout here. So that is just kind of a tidy, neat way to do that. But, anyway, it's got a little bit more plumbing involved and expense to do it, but some people like to do that. Then the next way of installing a water ionizer is under sink installation. And this is a very, very popular method because a lot of times people don't have enough room on their counter, and they and they also just like the beauty of just having a faucet there and not having to see a machine. I personally love seeing the machine, but everybody's got their own tastes and styles. This particular faucet is beautiful. I don't really recommend any other under sink water ionizer because they will end up developing leaks, or there's just all kinds of problems with them. This is really the only reliable one, and it's got a special design inside to resist hard water scaling and leaking. So that's something to really think about with installing any ionizer under your sink. So for that reason, even if you're going to install a different kind of ionizer under your sink that's not quote unquote an undersink ionizer, I suggest just that brand of the Alcaviva H2 series brand, which is resistant to scaling and leaking and that kind of thing. Now, if you wanted to take a cheaper H2 series water ionizer, for instance, maybe the Melody 2 or something, much cheaper, and put that under your sink. I've had many customers do this, and they hook up to a double faucet. Now, I used to sell this, but I don't have access to it anymore. You can get it. I have a link from AliExpress, and this is pretty much the faucet. It looks like a decent faucet. Anyway, the double faucet works by feeding water up to the faucet, then it goes down to the machine. Anyway, you have to follow the instructions. And that top faucet would be for the alkaline water, and the bottom faucet for the acidic water. And similar to that other tiny faucet, the machine would be just left on standby, and it would turn on automatically every time you turn on the water flow by pulling that lever down to start the water flow. Now, anytime that you're hooking the machine up under the sink, and it's not the Delphi under sink, but it's one of the other models, you would need a special adapter. So you take that flexi hose off of the top where the alkaline comes out of the machine, and you'd have to put a special piece in its place that lets you hook up a 1/4-inch hose, and that's what would hook up to this faucet. And there'd be another adapter piece too for the bottom of the acidic water hose. And then the final way, and I've had people do this, sometimes people just don't want the acidic water. They're like, oh, well, it just goes out in the drain anyway. And they want to put it under their sink, and they just want their own little filter faucet, and it's not a double faucet. You can do that, but what happens is, now you're hooked up your alkaline water to the single faucet, and what do you do with your acidic water? So you would have to put a drain saddle, is what it's called. Hook it up to your waistline, and this is done with reverse osmosis equipment too. So plumbers know how to do this, and you have your acidic hose go there, and it would drain out. Now with these drain saddles, you could take that hose out and pour acidic water if you wanted to, but you'd really have to watch it, because if you're doing anything, if it's under your sink out of sight, let's say you have a 3-gallon jug under there you're filling, and it's not in your direct line of vision, it could start leaking. So you just watch out for that. Okay, well, that's it. Hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it helps you with choosing how you're going to hook up your water ionizer.